Thank you very much to the Center for Family and Human Rights and the Permanent Mission of Paraguay for the kind invitation to participate in this important side event. And I'm very sorry that I couldn't be with you in person. It was out of my hands. I've been asked to speak to the issue of prostitution, including pornography, and the work that I did on this. As you know, last year I presented a report to the Human Rights Council on the link between prostitution and violence against women and girls. I took the approach in the report that pornography is filmed prostitution, so I will address both of them very briefly here. In the report, I concluded that prostitution is a system of exploitation and violence that is perpetrated almost exclusively by males against a majority of women and girls. Three parties participate in this system and allow it to thrive. There are the men and boys who are usually the buyers of sexual acts. There are the women and children, including girls, that are bought and that to satisfy the sexual acts. And then you have the third parties, whether they are individuals, companies, or states, that are the pimps and that profit or benefit from prostituting women and girls. I call it a system of exploitation and violence because, as also my conversations with women with lived experience and victims of prostitution show, they are subjected to atrocious, unimaginable, horrific levels of violence day in, day out. All sorts of violence, physical, economic, psychological, separation from their family members, reproductive violence, everything that you can and cannot imagine. And the system of violence is sustained by the patriarchal norms that we see them, but they're also sustained by globalization, commercialization, and commodification of everything, including women's bodies, their sexual and reproductive functions. And prostitution, as you can imagine, thrives because of economic inequality, because of conflict, because of underfunded humanitarian situations, because of the legacies of colonialism, the impact of extractive industries, war, all of that further marginalizing, subjugating, and violating women and girls. And of course, within that context, women and girls that come from already marginalized, severely discriminated backgrounds based on multiple grounds are even more vulnerable than to be pushed into prostitution and remain entrapped in prostitution. So by that, I mean women that come from minorities that are already discriminated against, colored women, indigenous women, poorer women, migrant and refugee and stateless women, amongst others. Because you see, prostitution actually thrives on sexualizing and racializing poverty, and also it preys on those that come from marginalized backgrounds. Now, as I said, pornography is filmed prostitution, and I look at some of the consequences of normalizing the access and consumption of prostitution, of pornography, including, in particular, I would say, by adolescents, whether it's boys or girls. You have two levels of impact, one on society, incredibly harmful for society because it erases the boundaries between what counts as sex and what counts as sexual violence. It shapes the sexual exploitations of men and boys in a very harmful way. Often when you consume pornography, it leads you to enact the violence that you see in real life. And then, of course, for the girls, it's incredibly distressing to be exposed to this constant message that what you are best for is actually to be sexualized and to be continuously pornified. So that's really that, and of course, on a society level, it undermines the possibility of achieving true gender equality. So in the report, I present a number of conclusions and recommendations. The main recommendation I have from a policy perspective for states having reviewed the different policy models that states have adopted, it is to really consider adopting the Nordic/equality model. And that's primarily because it's the only model that really tries to address and cut demand, end demand for buying sexual acts. Because it's the buyers who have the most choice, really, in this whole equation. And therefore, they can consciously do something about this. The other thing is that we have to start thinking about pornography sites as crime scenes where women and children are subjected to atrocious forms of violence, inhuman, degrading treatment, torture, slavery, trafficking, you name it. And therefore, that in order to make headway on this, states must enforce legislation. They must force platform providers, service providers that benefit from prostitution, that benefit from pimping women and girls online and offline. They must be subjected to comprehensive forced regulations that remove them, that force them to remove pornographic content, that force them to increase the age of access to such content, at least until the age of 18 or 21. And they must adopt a legislation that explicitly criminalizes the production, possession, hosting of pornographic material, because it violates fundamental rights to life and dignity and really human rights. And to do that, therefore, it's not sufficient for governments to ask these companies and service providers to abide by voluntary guidelines. These must be enforceable. I'm of the view that it's very difficult to really distinguish between good and bad pornography. So therefore, I advocate for moving to a total ban. But of course, until we reach there, there's a number of very important steps and actions that states can take, as I have mentioned. So given the lack of time, I'm going to stop here, but I'm happy to engage also separately with any of you should you wish to do that. And once again, thank you very much.